All right. So hi Josh.
Hello. Hello, Amy.
Welcome. I put out a little message about finding someone that wanted to talk about our communities with each other, and Josh said, "Yes, pick me." And so here we are. And we don't really know anything about each other or our communities except for where we live.
Yeah.
So this will be fun. It will be just like a person that doesn't know, and you can tell me all the things. Um, and so I thought first we could just go and talk about, they tell me a little bit about Lakewood Lift.
Okay. Uh, it's always hard to figure out where to start because a lot of times starting. So, I think the easiest thing is just kind of say where we are now and what we're doing now. So Lakewood Left, we are the way I pitch it to people whenever people ask, what is it? I say we are a left-leaning, politically left-leaning group that's here to build community and feed people. And so our main project that we work on and basically consumes most of what we do is every Friday we meet together at a corner and feed anyone who needs food. We specifically put ourselves very close to where there's a lot of unhoused people, but you'll get people that, just, hungry walking by and we'll feed them. We feed each other, we eat together. Um, yeah, that's basically what we do. And that's kind of the very, very short version of that.
Right? It's always more complex than what we say and
Yeah,
share with people, right? Like there's
right,
so
right, right.
many little parts. And I guess that's why we're here, right? To explore those parts together. And I love that you said feed people, because at first I was like, oh, like feed like inward, which I think probably is like part of it, right?
Yeah.
And why we love micro solidarity so much is it kind of covers it all. So how do you feel like micro solidarity, like how are you using those principles in what you're doing with um, your community?
So mostly I use the idea of scales involved with it. It gets a little fuzzy um, because our group is probably, I mean, when we first started doing kind of our current project about 2 years ago, every Friday it might be we, I would say like we've got I always describe it as like a mini congregation. Originally, I thought we were kind of a crew, but then after like watching a lot more and learning more about microsolidarity, I think we're less structured than a crew, but we're not as big as like what you would think a congregation would be. So I think of it as a mini congregation, which is like, I don't know, 10 to 15 people. Too big to be a crew, not structured enough to be a crew, but also not quite the size to call it a congregation fully. And so I've been thinking mostly about the scales of it. And when we started 2 years ago, every Friday when we would do our feeding people, it was about 3 to 5 or 6 of us that would come out consistently every Friday. Now we're probably up to around anywhere between 5 and 10 after about 2 years. And we've had some cycling in and out of people, but it's mostly kind of the framework to think about like how much structure do you need for making decisions or leadership or any of those sorts of details that seemingly aren't important, but they are important kind of to the whole dynamic of how people are interacting with each other.
Yeah, so with that, so about 10 people, is there, what I liked about when I first learned about micro solidarity was like the upfrontness of it all, like just kind of having conversations that sometimes it takes people forever to get to, like how things are structured, or how decisions are made, or how do we express feedback. Um, is there, is that a part of um, the process, like when you first started, or how do you, did you start that in that way of being very open with how you're going to run the every Friday, or yeah.
Yeah, I think I'd been in a lot of groups, different groups, and I've started a lot of different groups and have had many positive and negative experiences, making my own mistakes here and there. And so when we started doing it, and I'm not even the founder of the group. So it was actually founded by a friend of mine, and she asked me to come and help. And she is a single mother and also a caregiver of her mother. And so she asked me to help her with this kind of whole project together. This might be a good time to talk about a little bit about, I guess, the origins or history of what we're doing. Um, Before I even heard about microsolidarity, I had started a mutual aid group, and it wasn't mutual aid that most people think of. Most people think of like what we're doing now as mutual aid, but I was thinking of mutual aid as kind of you form a community network or a small crew of people. This was before I even knew the microsolidarity language. You form like a small crew and you try to help each other out. I went on Nextdoor and recruited a bunch of people together. And for a couple months, we had a nice, little crew going on. At the same time, my friend, she was on Nextdoor finding that there wasn't many uh, politically left people on Nextdoor. There wasn't any groups in our neighborhood. And so she started that. I was supportive of it, but I was very much a very passive participant. I wanted to focus on this like little mutual aid group. And she got help from another friend. They had a falling out. And so then after that, she asked me to come and help her. And at this point, it was just a group on Nextdoor. Not knowing what to do, it was just kind of a discussion board. Then she thought, okay, well, let's have some in-person meetings in the park. We had one in-person meeting early spring 2021. I came to that because I was curious, and I wasn't even helping at that point. And there was a couple people that wanted to do more like electoral politics type stuff. Um, then we had another meeting a couple months later, and it was a different group of people that wanted to do a couple different things. And so after the meeting, her and we were sitting together, and she said, "I, I, I just want to feed people. How can we feed people?" Because she herself had lived on the streets for about a year and a half at one point in her life. And so this was really, really important to her. And I thought, okay, well, let's see what is the minimal thing we need to do. She said, okay, well, we got to have some food, get some flyers for people to come and ask people to come help. Okay. So we went and did that. And at the same time, I thought it might be nice to create like a Discord group to get everyone together, because Nextdoor is not really good for having like multiple posts and conversations and organizing stuff together. So I set up a group on a group on Discord to try to, I guess, better facilitate kind of the asynchronous communication versus what we do on Fridays. And so we just started bringing people in, and I called them, what did I call them? Trusted communities within the Discord server that I built. And basically, because at that point, we didn't know what the future was going to be for the group and what we were going to do. So I created she called it the Community Eats Trusted Community. So that became a trusted community so that we could bring in people that want to help. Maybe they're not politically left leaning, but they still want to help, but we can put them in kind of this circle so that we can avoid any common issues that I've seen in the past, which is infighting or, bad faith discussions. And so I separated out the Community Eats Project from local politics, local non-electoral politics, and local electoral politics. And that's kind of how I structured it together. And I originally did not want to be a leader. It was just like, okay, I just wanted to avoid conflict and make sure people can have a good space to be.
And how did you like figure that out? Like who goes into what category?
So most people are not really in the other categories. Within
Mm,
Discord, I have like an open chat, which is meant to be kind of where the different trusted communities will interact with each other. And then each one will have their own like private channels to discuss their own things. Really, after these 2 years, the private chats are not really used for
mm,
local electoral politics or non-electoral politics, but the community eats chats is, I don't know, maybe there's 20 different channels now because of all the different topics. And that's most of what we have. Oh, and we also have one additional one that came in, another trusted community that was built within our framework for, we call gym and etc. So mostly about like training and
mm.
working out and all that.
How like were those all created by you or the founder, or was it like interest led by other groups or other
So
people?
yeah, so I create since at the beginning we weren't sure where it was going. I initially created the local electoral, the local non-electoral, and then the community eats. The gym and etc. One was created after we got a bunch of basically I would say its own crew came and joined us. Um, Own preformed crew. Basically, they were friends from high school, came and joined us. And at that point, they were saying, hey, I would like to do something that involves training or, yeah, something like that. And I said, okay, well, I'll build you this kind of separate thing so you can discuss whatever you want. You can be in charge of that piece. And actually, one thing I forgot to mention that earlier this summer, we started in addition to the Fridays that we have where we feed people, on Sundays, we a small group of us go to the park and then kind of work out together and train. So that's kind of been an addition that added onto it. So actually, that kind of trusted community part of Discord for gym and etc. kind of stayed vacant for probably, I don't know, 6, 8 months. And then it was eventually filled in early this summer when one of them wanted to really start getting people to, come to the park and start working out together in kind of very similar fashion the way we feed people, which is a very communal
Do
social gathering.
you feel like that's the kind of culture you're trying to build? Is like I'm always interested how you bring people together and how do we bring them to become leaders and like step up of like this is what I'm interested in and I would like
Mm.
to start this. How did like was that thought about, or is that just kind of luck of finding people that are like, hey, I want to try this and I want to try this?
So I think that there's probably a culture of openness that needs to be brought there. Um, and usually I frame it personally as I don't have the capacity to lead this thing that you want to be led, but you could lead it. And uh, sometimes that can be intimidating to the person because they may not have the capacity either to do the thing. But you can just say, okay, well, at that point, well, let's think about how we can do this or this idea that wants to be done. I can give one example, which is there was this many times after we've been doing this like Friday feed, and it's a very social time. Uh, Someone once mentioned, hey, it would be nice if we had like another social event in addition to our Friday things. Maybe it doesn't have to be every Friday or every week. It could be once a month, but like a social event just for us in the group instead of interacting with people with the unhoused population and neighbors. I said, yeah, sure. I said I just don't want to plan it. I'll come. I just don't want to plan it. And they're like, oh, okay, I don't have capacity to plan it. And this went on with to the fourth person after about a year. And what's funny is I would say, okay, this person said the same thing to me. This person said the same thing to me. So now you got four people that want another social event. would you like to plan it? And then that person finally did. And so for, I would say about 3 or 4 months, we were having these monthly social gatherings. We go to like this nearby food court after we finished cleaning up from giving out food. And that worked out well. Um, I think it may have partially died out because I stopped joining, because then I had other commitments after we were giving out food
Mm.
and I couldn't join. And there was like 3 or 4 of us, but that's kind of how the interest comes around is, we talk about while we're giving out food, at least at these Friday gatherings, we talk about different, whatever's on our mind, whatever's local politics, or not even that, or just general life stuff. And then someone will say, hey, I would really like that we could work out or train together in the park. And I'd say, yeah, that's a great idea. Why don't you figure out how we can do that? And that's kind of how we bring it about.
So yeah, so it's more of like you coming together in relationship, doing something together, conversations come, and then ideas are sparked together because of that relationship.
Yes, exactly.
Have you ever had like a brainstorming, like a relational practice, or do you do any relational practices when with this group, either online or out of, in community together?
No, actually, what's interesting is I know that is a big part in a lot of communities within microsolidarity, but that's not something um, we have needed to do. Mostly because, well, one, I don't want to lead it. And then the other thing is every week it might be a different group of people. I mean, now that we've been doing it many times, we all know each other well. So I think a lot of what's done in relational practice will build naturally over time. So my interpretation of a lot of the relational practices that you'll see in microsolidarity is I think it's an element of scarcity of time or coming together because a lot of them are like, okay, we're bringing everyone together and we want to, efficiently use this time to create as many social bonds as possible. But for us, we're meeting every week, so it's like if we miss each other one week, there's another week. Or
Mm.
anytime we have a new person that wants to join us and I tell them about it, they say, oh, sorry, I missed your thing on Friday. I was like, well, there's another Friday coming up. So
Mhm.
I would say we're building these relationships very slowly over time, letting people um, uh, decide on how much they want to give, kind of, I guess, about themselves or how much they want to invest their own kind of personal emotional time into it. And with that means that when we do get a new person, we have to be, I have to, at least I'm trying to be cognizant of the fact that they haven't built relationships with other people in the group. And I try to, spend the time when it's their first or second or third time there, um, try to like, you know, have a conversation with them, talk to them about what the group does, what the different interests are, how they could be involved in whatever way they want to be.
Do you think that I've noticed, there's leaders that lead in that way by modeling and showing how you want the culture to be. And do you feel like just the modeling is people notice what you're doing in
Yeah,
terms of like, here, come welcome you? Like, is it like other people doing that, or is it usually just you doing that?
yeah. I definitely think other people, like in the beginning, it might have been mostly me that like, oh, if there was an issue, hey, Josh, can you help with this? Or do you know this thing? Someone's asking about this thing. But now I feel like in the past, maybe like 8 months, year or so, even though people will still come to me for difficult issues that things come up, not because I'm the best skilled at it, but I might know the best knowledge, context or knowledge of something. Um, Now, for example, I remember that there were 2 new people that came earlier this summer, and I was too busy running around doing things. And instead of me spending time with these 2 new people, other people from the group spent time, just standing there talking with them, explaining what we do. And this was never something that I said, oh, I need someone to do this. People just stepped up to the role to do that. And that was
Mm.
very nice. Whenever these kind of things naturally happen, I always go, oh, that was really nice that I never had to like explicitly ask anything to be
Right.
done. And that's the way a lot of things actually happen when we give out food is I try to get there first to make sure that there's someone there for when people are coming and expecting us to be there at 6 p.m. And I'll start handing out food. But then as other people come and bring their food and set up their tables or whatever, uh, I'll get I'll get sidetracked in a conversation with someone and I'll step away. And if I step away, then someone will step up to take the place and give out food. So it's this kind of very
Mm.
natural, like it's not like, hey, can someone help? Sometimes you do need to ask people to help you, but a lot of times it's just like people will step in, see that there's a need that needs to be filled, and just so, oh, I need to fill in that need.
Which, man, that's amazing. Like that's getting that naturally to happen does create, I feel like that's what creates community, right? Like just the
Yeah.
people go like seeing the need and doing it. Like that's something that I noticed and trying to bring is like that noticing because we've kind of moved away from that. So much is just done for us, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so I have two questions. One, just a quick one. I I was thinking more of like canned goods or like not maybe not canned goods, but like do people make food like in their
Oh,
kitchens and then bring their food and share? Is that how it's that's
yeah, yeah, yeah. So every week I make chili every week. And I basically every Saturday I go down to a food rescue and try to get whatever ingredients I can to make the chili. Then I will go to the grocery store and buy whatever ingredients I'm missing. Spend the week making the chili, and then reheat it Friday while I'm working from home. Reheat it, and then go there and give it out. Other people basically do similar process for other things. Some people will bring hot dogs. One of our members, their mother helps make a ton of food. So I will bring probably 15 to 20 servings of chili. They will bring, I don't know, maybe 50 or 60 servings of whether it's mac and cheese or chicken and rice or so. Every week it's always a different dish. I'm trying to make the same thing every week because I can fit it into my routine schedule
mm,
that way. But they're pretty good about making something different every week. Um, yeah, and sometimes we'll
that's
bring canned goods, but not that's not the
I mean,
biggest need that we see there. Yeah.
that's so cool. Like I don't know why I didn't connect that that's what you're doing because it's just I think that feels like it's a whole new element, right? That we're
Yeah.
like creating it with love in our homes and then bringing it to
Yeah.
people and serving and like it's the variety of it and it's like sometimes people don't have that variety that they get what
Mhm.
is served, you know, and now you can kind of go to what you feel like eating, you know, and
Right.
picking that, which is kind of a really cool way of doing that.
Right. Right. And basically when a new person comes to our group, and they will ask like how they can contribute. And I will say, I mean, I say I have a list in my head of ways you can contribute.
Mm.
But I think the best thing is that you come, even the first time, you don't have to bring anything, or you can just be here. Um, and you will naturally see a need that's not being filled that maybe would be really easy for you to fill. And even if that isn't a physical thing, maybe it's just talking with people or just being here. It doesn't have to be a physical item. But if there is something that's physical that you see being needed that you can easily provide or have some connection to, that could be your thing. Um, because
People
I
are
can go a far.
already on the
Yeah,
look, you know, they're on
right.
the lookout of like that brings that like, oh, this is me. What do I want to do?
Yeah,
Which is what you just said has happened in your communities. People show up.
right, right, exactly. Like,
Yeah.
there is a guy who he contributes, but he doesn't hang out with us, and he's not even in our Discord group. He's an elderly gentleman who he gets a bunch of these meals on wheels. They're like they get them frozen, and you can reheat them. but because of dietary restrictions, he can't eat them. So what he will do is he will save them up over a couple weeks. He will heat them all up at once and then bring them over to us, and then we'll give those out in addition to our food. I always invite him, hey, you can come hang out and stay
Mhm.
with us. He's like, oh no, I got other things I need to get done, but thanks for the offer. And he'll go his other way. But we talk for a couple minutes when he comes and contributes that. And so that
Yeah.
a couple doors down from us, there's a woman who she I think she works for like some sort of bakery, and she does like taste testing, and she will sometimes say, oh, they didn't want to keep the cakes that they tasted, but I know I can always bring them down to you. So every once in a while she'll bring us a lot of cakes. The first time she
Mm.
came, she brought us 17 cakes, and so we were
Nice.
like, here's a bowl of chili, and please take this whole cake with you. And like, I don't know if I can eat a whole cake. Well, share it with your friends.
That's cool. That makes me think like, I always have these visions of like, let's do this. And then like the reality of like, oh, we live in often the United States where there's like a lot of restrictions on
Hmm.
like my big thinking. Is there any like, do you have to get a permit? Or are you just kind of like going there and doing the thing on like, is it on like the street, like
Yeah,
sidewalk
it's on
or
the sidewalk. Yeah. Um, we don't actually have any permits or anything. And
I hope I didn't out you or anything?
no, no, so it's actually very funny. This has been a concern of us when we started doing this in the beginning. We actually started out at a park and not on the street corner. And this actually comes up with like the very first kind of big decision we needed to make. And so we were in this park. We started August of 2021. And we were always waiting for like pushback from the neighbors of the park, like, oh, you're bringing bad people here or something like that. And we never got any pushback. Actually, one of the neighbors came out and like came and donated food to us. And I was like, oh, okay, we must be doing something good, right, if they're not pushing back on us. But we were like 1 block away from the main, I guess the main street that unhoused people are going to be walking up and down. And we used to flyer and try to bring people over, and we would get like, I don't know, 5 or 6 people every Friday. We would have a lot of leftover food, so we put it in carts, then walk up and down the street and hand it out. The founder of the group then said, why can't we just be on the street like directly
Right.
instead of back here? And I was, I'm a very risk averse person. And I was like, I don't know. Cause we were in our mind, we were thinking we are going to set up in someone's parking lot. And then I don't want to deal with, trespassing issues and then putting people that are living on the street in harm's way with police and all that. Separately, around that same time, I was having a meeting with the mayor on a completely different topic. And I mentioned to him about this issue, and he was just like, just do it. I think you'll be fine. I said, okay. Um, there were some people in the group that were kind of like, yeah, he can say that, but it's us
Mm.
that would be getting the consequences. But what I was very reluctant even then to do it. So what I did was I said, well, maybe this is a conversation we need to have with the group, but the problem is our group is never all together to make the decision. So I went one by one to each person in our group. I think that time we were like 6 or 7 or 8 people big. So it wasn't hard. So each one I would say, me and the founder of the group had this idea of, instead of doing it in the park, we do it directly on the street. And each person was like, oh yeah, that's a great idea. And as we were having this conversation, it was convincing me that this was a good idea. So in the end, it was only me that was the one who was objecting to it. So by the end, I was like, okay, this is a good idea. So then the question was, well, now where on the street? And so two of us went out, and she says, I found it. I say that she found it, but we found a sidewalk that was kind of this double wide sidewalk, so that it was perpendicular to the main street. We could be on this sidewalk. We could set up our tables, but not be in the right of way. There was lots of parking on the street that we could park our cars at. And the business that was on the corner closed at 6 o'clock. So originally we were doing it 5 o'clock in the evening at the park. So we decided to change it to 6 o'clock in the evening at this corner, um, so that we wouldn't interfere with the business. And even some of the workers from the business would come and contribute like a couple dollars here and there every so often, which was like, okay, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I almost feel like we've gotten so scared and risk like about doing things that sometimes it stagnates us and we don't do anything. And I just like
Yeah.
the idea of like, I don't know, doing such good in the world. I just can't sometimes think like you're doing such good in the world, right? Like, um,
Yeah, and I think we're lucky that I mean, we haven't had any issues with the police. We did have once where one uh police officer asked me a bunch of questions, and he was very interested, like, so where do you get your food? Where do you get your
mm.
donations? Uh, where is your headquarters? And when he said, where's your headquarters? I said, well, right here on the corner here. And he was like, I think he thought I was being silly with him because he was like,
Oh,
no, like if I were to mail a letter to your organization, where would it be? And I go, I don't know. You would just
he
bring it
blew his
here.
mind, right? You like
Yeah. And
it's
eventually got to the point where I said, well, we're a group of people that met on Nextdoor. And at that point, he was like, oh, and then he left.
interesting. Yeah. Oh, I wonder how many. I just love the idea of people coming together for a shared vision and just doing sometimes like the things that we think nonprofits are doing
Hmm.
and just kind of the freedom of it, right? There's
Hmm.
like so much less red tape and we can actually just do the thing versus like all the planning or all the
Hmm.
grant writing and all the
Yeah.
it feels like it just can get to what it's supposed to be doing and just empowering people to like realize that they could do that like is
Hmm.
such a cool message, which I think like this you hearing you is like exciting me for.
Oh, wonderful.
um yeah.
Because
um
we actually will, like, there's been conversations in our group about like, do we want to become an official chartered organization? And I mostly push back on the fact that I don't want to do the paperwork for that. I don't want to then turn into this thing where you got to do grant writing. I have my own job that I have to do, and all of that. So what we end up doing is other nonprofits in our area will either hear about us or we'll reach out to them or we'll invite them to come see what we're doing, and they will figure a way to like give us some things that they can give us. So um we go to the food rescue. I will stand in line like a regular person going to a food rescue to get food. Um and other members of our group will also do the same thing. There was a food bank that's a couple blocks from us that uh, we have a special relationship that we were able to get a bunch of bulk food items from. There's a local church that's offered for us to use their kitchen to cook food. We haven't done that yet because that requires a little more organization than we're doing at the moment. But I hope eventually that we can take them up on that offer.
Is that something
Um,
you'd like to put out in like to the world? Like is that one of the ideas of like something you'd like to see happen
you mean for us or just in general?
for you? Yeah, like
Um,
if you're dreaming in the future of like that's something that would be cool. I would love to have someone be like, yeah, I'll lead that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and we've talked about this within our group that
Mm,
a lot of this just because it requires a little bit of like slow building. Um, and we can get everyone or a group of people on Friday together. I think if we were going to do like cooking on a different day at a church or something, that requires another little bit more organization because we try to be as kind of loosely associated as possible with as minimal structure, which
mm,
has its good parts in that people can contribute kind of a la carte or like whenever they feel it, but it does create a problem where there are certain things that require a little bit more commitment that we're not able to do, because it would require a little bit more commitment. And I think we are building slowly towards that.
yeah. Is that
Um,
like
yeah.
something like a structure you'd like to bring in is like finding those people that could add to that and be a group, like a small leadership group or
Yeah, I mean, I just need, I feel like I need one person to build the relationship with the church. Now, I've started on that track. So that church actually hosts at what they call a safe parking lot for people that are living in their cars to park in. So they have 4 spots. And so on the way to giving out food, I will stop there and give out chili to those people and bottled water to them. And we've actually had an event at the church in August. Um, we we put together a big event with the 2 pastors from the church and our group, and we kind of did it kind of the same way we do at the corner, but a bigger version of it, which was it was kind of this potluck style where we get neighbors, church members, and then people that are uh, unsheltered living in the area to come to enjoy food together. And we had a movie and all this nice thing. And it was very, very cool. And I remember the pastor was so happy. He was like, I've seen so many faces in this church that I've never seen before. And so I think um, it's going to require a little more organization on our end. And then I think just slowly building up that relationship with the church and with the different community members and church members and all that. So I think it's a slow motion in progress. I think um, I feel it's like naturally moving in that direction. So in a way, it doesn't have to be a call out to the group or to the world to do it, but I think over time, I think it'll naturally happen.
I like sitting with that. A lot of the groups that I'm in with women, mainly talking about cycles and such and how our lives sometimes we can try to drive things so fast and like our culture is very like this is what we need
Mhm.
to do, then this and this and this, and we've lost that balance of like holding the unknown and being kind of a little bit uncomfortable but knowing
Mhm.
like there is a direction and that we can just hold it and know like there this is like it could happen. It sounds like I don't know if that's part of your culture or just you as a person that you can like sit with that like yeah like this might happen and I'm going to slowly take steps towards it instead of like this is what we're doing and this is
Yeah. It's a learning progress because um I'm an engineer, and so I want to fit things in a very neat
yeah.
category. So this has been kind of an uncomfortable learning process for myself because, for example, about this whole like getting food from the food rescue. There was another group that we've partnered with before, and they said, "Oh, we've got this special relationship with the food rescue where you can come in on off hours and get the food you need and take it with you." Well, of course, I was like, "Okay, that's very cool." I don't want to be the one to do it, but we could do this like kind of very organized thing where uh, we get together, we ask the people in the group what food do they need to make what they want for the week. We get a person to go there to get the food, and then we can bring it back and then distribute it. And that was the original plan I had in my head. So I started working with the food rescue, and so before they would open, they let me come and they would I would give them a list of the things we needed. We would do that. Then I would hold on to it and maybe give it out to different people. And it really wasn't, it was working in this kind of efficient way if I was doing it, but I really wanted it to be more of a group effort. And so I ended up kind of slowly paring that down to where I just go in line as a person to the food rescue to get food as if it was for my family, even though it's for this thing. And for a while, I was the only one doing it, maybe for 6 or 8 months. And then every week I just keep talking about it, and eventually someone's like, "Oh yeah, yeah, I should go there and do that." So now different people from our group will go there on different days as a person standing in line doing it. So a lot of times I've thought like in our society we're trying to promote like efficiency and like the way to get things done the fastest. but I don't think that works for us. I think it has to be in what works building up the relationship wise. And maybe we'll never get to kind of this distribution model. Maybe it will always be us coming together, or maybe it'll be something where like four of us are showing up every Saturday, which isn't currently the thing that happens. Maybe if four of us show up all the time, then we go, well, maybe only one of us needs to show up or something like that. So maybe it can build to that. But I think it takes time. And I think it takes like just thinking about what is the most minimal thing to just get started and start with that. And even do that for a long time. I think it's my
Yeah.
internet that's failing if you've noticed
Okay.
it.
I was like, wait, he just be here for a minute. I think there is something to, like, when I think about community and making it to be just as easy as possible to
Mm,
get everyone to do the thing, because yeah, it takes a even just showing up is a big deal for
mhm.
some people, right? Just at the commitment of just coming or so making it accessible and easy is like I feel like a key part. Yeah,
Yeah,
I I
and I would also say consistency too. Like,
mm,
um, one thing I know, like, I mean, one of my responsibilities as kind of like a leader in the group or host or whatever term I usually use coordinator as the term I use, is that I try to be the one who shows up. Like other people, my work schedule is very flexible, and I have the ability to show up every Friday, almost every Friday at 6. And so I will do that. Other people in the group are not able to because they get off work at different times or, child situation or whatever. But since I don't have those, I guess, constraints, I will try to make the effort to be there. And I think by doing that, it kind of sets into place that other people can come when they need to come or when they can come. Um, so there is an element to making sure that there is some consistency and people know what to expect. So, like one organizational level that we do is for every Friday, we do a roll call and see who's coming. So that at least you would say, okay, if I
mm,
show up, I don't want to be alone or be the only one there.
right.
And I don't want to be the only one who brought food this week. Um, so what we do is we set up a thread in our event planning or event coordination channel that basically it was originally done by me, but I got another member of the group to do it. So every Monday we post up, yeah, basically who's coming this week. Here's our list in our community pantry. So we've got our own like kind of canned ingredients that each of us are holding that could be shared to be used by someone to make something. Um, we've got that, and then we have another spreadsheet that shows of what you're bringing, what you're bringing, and it could be, how many servings of chili are you bringing, how many bottles of water, how much spaghetti you bring, and that's kind of our level of organization every week, so that at least not everyone fills it out. Um, so like I would say about half of us will fill that out and say what they're bringing, and the other half won't. They'll just show up with food, and that's great too. Um, so that's one kind of level that we kind of have this. It gives a feeling of I'm not going to be alone. I know who's coming. If this person's coming, I want to talk with that person. Maybe that's an extra level of incentive for me to come out because I like that person. I want to talk with them.
Mm-hmm. Is there any, when you think about, I just like sometimes talking to people that hold the space for something, and just ask them, like, is there like a simple ask that you have of the people that are part of what you're doing or might be listening and would like to be a part of it? Like a simple ask and like maybe even like a big ask of like, ooh, that feels kind of like
Mm,
tender to ask or vulnerable. Are there any of those?
I guess a simple ask is like I guess it when you organize these type of things, I guess this isn't even asked. This is more like a, I don't know, is it a piece of advice? Maybe it's a piece of advice. To not be afraid to do these sorts of things and come in with like a vision or a plan, but don't be married to it. Be very like, I like as holding this space, um, us feeding people, in my mind, that's kind of my secondary objective. My primary objective is make sure like people are, feel welcome, that they're having a good time doing what they're doing, because they're never going to show up again if they don't feel welcome, if they don't feel like they're having a good time. So I focus less on the actual mission of feeding people or feeding ourselves or all that, but more or less kind of the relational aspect between each other, and trying to be very cognizant of it. Like if there's a new person that came in and I've the only one that talked with them for a couple weeks, then they're kind of their relationship to the group is through me, and that is not going to be sustainable in the long term. So I always, if there is a person that's new to the group in that way, I'm always trying to kind of expand that relationship with other people, so that then when they have an ask or a need, that I'm not the only person that they're comfortable talking with, they can find another person they're comfortable talking with.
Mhm.
And so I would say it's just kind of being cognizant of that. um a big ask is more or less like, I guess, yeah, it's very related to that. It's like, uh, be very, how is it? I guess it's just, don't be so focused on like needing to plan where the group is going. And this is something I've kind of fallen into now, is like, I used to have kind of more ambitions about where the group is going and where it is. And these days I don't really have those ambitions. It's more or less like, I'm going to hold the space. And if people want the group to grow, that's going to be up to them to help grow it, or the direction it goes. That's going to be up to them to decide the direction it goes. And I will be there to support whatever direction or whatever new people we get. But on the actual direction and focus of the group, I think that has to be coming from the other group members themselves. I will try to hold the space. And I think having more people that are willing to, that, how is it? Usually the person who founded the group is both the visionary person and expected to hold the group and hold the space and do all that stuff. What's nice about the way the founder of the group and I have kind of, we haven't delineated responsibilities exactly like that, but it's kind of like, I let her be kind of the visionary of where the group should go along with the other members. I will just focus on trying to hold the space
Mm.
and separating those two as best as possible, I think. Um, and finding a person that's okay with just holding the space and not being too focused on the actual mission of the group in general.
Yeah, it reminds me of a book that I read about the different like skill sets and kinds of people in a community that are needed and
Yeah.
how they play together. And it sounds like, you have two, I think there's like five roles of them, and I can't name them off my head, but it sounds like that's a great like partnership that you have.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is
Yeah.
there, let's see, I think we're almost, do you know what time we started?
Yeah. Well, we probably started maybe 5 after, and we're now
Okay.
at the hour. So I
Yeah.
guess we
Is there
have,
anything else? Let me look at my list of questions.
yeah.
Is there anything you're just like extremely like, it sounds like I've heard a lot of gratefulness from you, like just showing gratitude for the people and how it what happens. Is there
Mhm.
anything else that you just kind of like you want to express about what's happened in your community, like of gratefulness and like just noticing that? Because sometimes for me personally, it sounds like for me, I'm always like thinking ahead, and it
Mhm.
sounds like you're a very present person, which is is good. But yeah, if you have anything,
Yeah, I say it's like it's focusing on the relational aspect of what you're doing. Um, in some ways, like in another organization, they're maximizing their goals of, if it's a company, they're maximizing their profits. I think of us maximizing the amount and quality of the relationships we are with people in our area. And so I think there's an element to like I was saying before, not focusing on the efficiency of what you're doing, but like how can we do this together in the most meaningful way possible, which is a very hard question to answer, but I think by doing you get an understanding, even if you can't put words into it. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's it's by doing. And that doesn't mean that there aren't going to be conflicts or hard times or hard issues, because we what's nice is so far we haven't had any like major internal struggles. We might have some uh kind of disagreements between people that usually are handled between the people having the disagreement. Um so yeah, it's all about um kind of the maximizing the relationship quality between people is what I would say to that.
And you feel like that's going well in your community.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And the nice thing about how like that's another way to say it is if if you bring a group together and you say, okay, we're going to maximize relationship quality and quantity, that's a weird thing to say. And that's a weird because you don't know what to do.
Right.
But what makes what I think what we're doing successful is we kind of have this kind of general mission of in at least the community eats part of our group, um, of feeding people. And that's a way for us to focus our attention while doing the relationship building, whether it's amongst ourselves or amongst our unhoused neighbors. And yeah, it's kind of like, even though in my mind my main focus is the relationships between the people, I think it's easier for people to hold that when you're thinking about a general, more like traditional mission.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, well, this has been lovely. I want to start something in my community. Like I keep I'm like, let's do this now. Because that sounds wonderful. And yeah, I'm curious, do you know anyone else in the United States that is doing a similar kind of mission as you? Or have you met
um
anyone?
there's some other people in microsolidarity that um I know of one person in the microsolidarity network that is doing something I would say very similarly to what I'm doing here. That I can after the call I can let you know who that is.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But I think I do want there is one thing I do want to say.
Yeah.
That is different within the way most people, at least that I've seen express the way I'm saying expressing their microsolidarity is I think a lot of the communities are more like these kind of they have big gatherings every, I don't know, maybe once a year or every 6 months. Uh, the way that we're expressing it is kind of having these kind of mini gatherings every week, which I think lends itself to building long term relational bonds that makes it very natural and easy. And I guess my ask to the larger microsolidarity community is I would love to hear more about if people have these kind of in-person communities and they're kind of more weekly, or maybe it's even biweekly or monthly gatherings that are more frequent than you see in other communities within microsolidarity.
Yeah. Maybe that's what brought us together, right?
Yeah, I feel that. I think
That's
I
what I'm
feel that.
doing too. And I think it is a cool take on it because it just makes it natural to like build that relationship. You're right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Josh, for sharing all that you do. And oh man, it's really neat. I love I love it.
I'm glad I could speak this because for a long time I've wanted to be interviewed and I never put out the ask like you had. And I was like, that's exactly what I wanted.
Yeah, sometimes it's, I know for me, where I live, not many people know about microsolidarity. So it's kind of like, I feel kind of like I would love just to like share and talk about it more,
Mhm.
and I see lots of things popping up that is allowing that now in microsolidarity, which is really exciting. Um, but just to like have this long chat to share what's going on.
Mhm.
So yeah,
Wonderful,
so,
wonderful.
yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Let me
Yep.
end this.
Okay.
How do I do this?